John Robinson is an educator and an author. He's a raconteur. He's a funny guy, a great storyteller, and this is his third program for us. He did a program called The Lost Cities of the East Bay, which was a wonderful program. And then he did a program about the Bay Bridge Troll, actually both trolls, because there was a troll on the original span, and then there's a troll now on the new span. And so tonight's program is called The Lift Bridges of the Bay Area, and please welcome John Robinson.
A lot of pressure tonight. One of the things one of the reasons I like to do these talks is because it helps me work out in advance if there's enough information or any interest in writing a book. I knew about the Bay Bridge Troll for a long time, but I thought, what can you do with a statue that's welded to the Bay Bridge for 25 years? Not a lot of action there. But eventually I gave the presentation and the book came out. So there it is, for better or for worse. Now, tonight, when Jeff asked me, do you want to do a program? I said, sure. He says, you have any ideas? And the answer was no. But I've been thinking about lift bridges for a long time. And I thought, well, I'll suggest that. And he said, yeah, that sounds great. Let's do that. And then a couple of weeks ago, he's like, can you send me the program? And I thought, no. Because I'm trying to find out about the lift bridges to do a book, to see if there's anything there even to do a book. Now, one of the things I like to do with these kind of talks is, rather than just talk at people, just invite people to ask questions or interject as they see fit. And so that's certainly what I would like to do tonight, because I need your help. Gentleman here in the front, Dan Danielson, he asked me 3 or 4 questions already about bridges across the bay near Napa that I didn't know anything about. So that's already worthwhile. So his wife took my email address, and I'll be picking his brain later to find out about that. And then a gentleman, Ron Moore, brought me a book about his family business. They did a dry dock company, is that right?
More Dry Dock. Yes.
Yeah, More Dry Dock. Okay, good. So I have something to read later tonight. So, let me ask you a question. Lift bridges of the Bay Area. What does it take to do a book? What do I need? I already know, I'm just hoping.
A lift bridge.
Well, that's easy, we got those. What else do we need?
Stories.
A writer, okay, maybe, I don't know.
Stories.
Yeah, stories. Stories. When I did my other books, this one, Al Zampa and the Bay Area Bridges, I had to hang my hat on Al Zampa. The Carquinez Bridge is named after Al Zampa. So I had interviewed Al Zampa when I was young. When I was an undergraduate. I did an oral history, so I had that material. And there was a play written about him called The Ace. And I tracked down the author of that play and got a copy of that play, and I tried to get it published. But the publisher, same people that do all those books over there, they balked about publishing the play. They said, we don't think anybody will be interested in that. So I said, God darn it. So I did Al Zampa and the Bay Area Bridges, and there's some information about lift bridges in that, and that was part of what I used to do this presentation. And then later, I did this book for the History Press called Bay Area Iron Master Al Zampa. I hate that title, but the editors were insistent about that. And it basically, I just published the oral history of Al Zampa along with Isabel Maynard, who wrote the play, and then we were able to publish the play. So the only reason I did 2 books like that was I wanted to get that damn play published, because I didn't want it to be lost to history. So finally we got that done so I can move on. And then finally I want to acknowledge Bernard C. Wynne, who wrote a book called California Drawbridges, 1853 to 1995. Wow. It was published in 1995, and so what little I know about the subject I got from this book, and I wanted to make sure I acknowledged him. So, does anybody know what the first bridge across the bay was? I mean, a substantial bridge, not a fallen tree.
Dunbar.
Well, people always say that. When you pick up a book about the history of bridges, they'll say, the first bridges were trees that fell across ravines. And I get them. What? No, that don't count. But nevertheless, what was the first bridge?
Dunbar.
Which, tell me more. You're half right.
I just heard about it just recently, so that's all I know.
Did you read one of my books?
Where I got that.
Okay, you blew it. You're supposed to.
Railway and locomotive started this today.
Oh, I didn't know that. Yeah, it was a railway bridge. And it's still there, oddly enough. It was,
Are you kidding?
it was opened in 1910. It's south of the Dumbarton Bridge, and you can kind of see the central span rotates, and it's locked in the open position, but you can't really see that from this angle. But it's still there. It's a very interesting bridge, the first bridge across the bay. Yeah, Steve?
I've operated railroad trains across that bridge.
What?
When were you a train operator? You should be up here.
1977.
How did you get that gig?
Long story.
We have an hour. You did. That's amazing. I would love to have gone across that bridge. I think
I bring it up because it was in service. It was a
until about 1985, I think.
yeah.
Yeah. So it's been. Yeah. It was the first bridge across the bay, and it was in service for a good long time.
What's the exact term for that kind of bridge?
Swing bridge.
Swing bridge.
Right. I think the title of this piece was lift bridges, but really it was movable bridges.
Yeah.
There's all sorts of types of these bridges in the Bay Area. This one's a little bit better. It's a more modern photograph, and you can see that the swing portion of the bridge is welded into the open position to allow boat traffic to go through. Now, this is very interesting. The story of this bridge. It's one of the few interesting stories I could find. It was basically sold to the people. There were 3 railroads involved. It was the Western Pacific, the Union Pacific, and one other. Do you know Santa Fe?
Southern. Well, the SP,
Yeah.
the Western Pacific, and then depends on what you're talking about.
Right. I mean, originally when it was built, and it
I
was
don't know.
sold. It was sold to the people as the Union Bridge, because all 3 railroads wanted to build a bridge across Dumbarton Point, but only one could do it. And so one group came along and said, well, we'll build a bridge and we'll share it. So they got approval to build the bridge, and no other trains ever went across the bridge. They immediately said, it's our bridge, you ain't using it, and that's that. So it's traditional. It's traditional. It's traditional railroad politics, which brings us to this. Frank Norris wrote a book around 1910 called The Octopus about railroad politics in California. And so you can see here you've got the octopus, the creature with the railroad, is a railroad, and the tentacles reaching into every aspect of California life. And so that original bridge across Dumbarton Point is a good example of that kind of cutthroat politics of the railroad. I can imagine, in my teaching, sometimes students will say, well, what do you like better? Do you like fiction or nonfiction? And I say, well, I prefer nonfiction, but they both have a place. And then they say, well, what's the difference? And I say, well, nonfiction deals in facts, and fiction deals in truths. And so this is an example of something that I think dealt in more of a truth than facts, although there certainly were facts behind it. And if some novelist were going to write a similar novel today about the octopus, what would the octopus be? Would it be the railroad? I don't even think it'd be the oil companies. That would have been in the 50s. Maybe. Google, thank you. Google, Amazon, companies like that would be the octopus today. So hopefully some, and maybe some of you are budding writers. There you go. There's an idea for you. You just do the similar thing, the octopus, with the tech companies. And so now, this is the Dumbarton Bridge. This was the first highway bridge across the bay. And it was hard to find photos of the Dumbarton Bridge, but this is not a bad one overall. I found that many of these bridges so far haven't been able to find very many construction photos. I don't really know why. Maybe they were there, but who knows what happens to these things over the years. And so I'm still looking. And then here's another picture of one of the towers with the lift span. This was the span that would lift up. Now, this probably seemed like a good idea before automobiles took over the world, but it quickly became the kind of thing that was not very useful, particularly if the span got stuck in the up position, which it did occasionally, and then the cars were stuck. And finally, when the new bridge was built back in the early 80s, I started as an iron worker, much the same way Steve started working as for the railroad. And I had to drive down there very early on in maybe 1981 or 1982 when they were building the new Dumbarton Bridge. So I remember seeing the old bridge. And here's a picture of its final day with the lift span in the up position, and goodbye. Quite amazing. It's easier to find demolition pictures. People are attracted to that.
Holy mackerel.
And this is the San Mateo Bridge. What a poor little sad sack. But at one time it was the longest bridge in the world
Yeah.
because of the causeway approach. I think it was 8 miles long.
Yeah.
And then they built the new high-level span, which even seems absurdly out of date now. I mean, it's just the traffic, it's just not enough. There simply is not enough. They didn't blow this one up when they finally demolished it. They put the contract out for bid to see who wanted to demolish it. The winning bid was $25 and some change. Literally nobody wanted it. And here's an example of the lift span being hauled away by a company. Now, the company that hauled it away was the same company that hauled this lift span into place 30, 40 years earlier. And so they submitted the only bid, hauled it away, and destroyed it. Now, so I went to Alameda one day and wandered around. If you've ever been along the waterfront where the bridges are, the far side bank over there is all houses and apartments, and it goes right down to the water, and everybody has boats and it's beautiful access. This side is part of the Bay Trail, and what do you think that's like? I hate to be a bummer.
Deer and elephants.
Say what?
Deer and elephants and rabbits.
No, it's homeless camps all the way from one side to the other.
Pretty close.
And so I felt bad traipsing through all that rubbish, but it's very sad. And so I don't know if I got these ones. Here we are. Okay. And so what I did was I walked across the bridge, took a picture, and then all of them, luckily for me, have this that tells us all about it. No jumping, diving, or fishing from the bridge. Typical California nonsense. The High Street Bridge, erected 1939.
Wow.
General contractor, McDonald and Kahn Company. Federal Works Agency project. Really cool old bridge. Beautiful. And what I really like about it is you can see there's the gears. The teeth for the gears. And so when it goes up and down in what we would call the anchorage of the bridge, or the pier, there must be machinery and cogs down there that raise and lower the bridge. The other thing I like about these old bridges is, let's see, a lift bridge like this, there's somebody on duty to make it go up and down when it needs to. Although I really have no idea how that works. I mean, could you just drive a boat up and honk and they open it for you? You have to make an appointment? I really don't know.
Well, when we had our boat on the Delta, you came up and you did toot the horn and they lifted the bridge.
Yeah, that was the same thing with Mare Island Bridge, yeah.
Really? Yeah, one time I was driving up by Rio Vista and I saw a boat come by and they just stopped the traffic and lifted the bridge, and it didn't look like it was all that involved. It just looked like, it almost looked like the water traffic took precedent over the highway traffic.
Oh, yeah.
Really?
That did.
Is that some sort of law or maritime law?
Definitely.
Oh.
More difficult to stop.
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't think of that. That's a very good point. He said it's more difficult to stop in a boat than it is in a car. That makes perfect sense. Uh-oh. This is the Park Street Bridge. This is another beautiful bridge. It's the same one. It's the same style as the High Street Bridge, and it was also built in 1935.
Beautiful bridge.
Very nice. Yeah, and what I like about these bridges is you can walk across them. And so you can walk from one to the other, to the other, to the other. And it's very, very pretty along the waterfront. And at a distance, you can see where there's boats in the foreground. This sailing boat on the left of the frame, I don't know what that is. It looks too big to be a private boat. It looks like it should be some sort of museum piece or something.
Part of the Valcruza.
Pardon me?
Is it part of the Valcruza? I don't think so.
Okay. Anybody's guess is as good as mine.
Anybody ever jump off that bridge?
There's a sign that says not to do it. So that wouldn't have stopped me when I was a kid, but nevertheless. Here's another nice bridge. This is an old railroad bridge that's in the raised position, and it's welded in that way. And there's also another little lift bridge next to it. It's more of a drawbridge than a lift bridge. And here you can see the lift bridge in action. If you just walked by and looked at it, you wouldn't think it was a movable bridge. But when you see it go up and down, you realize. So there's basically 3 bridges you can walk across and visit. The whole thing's about walking a mile and a half. You walk all the way there and all the way back to your car. This is the old Mare Island Bridge. And actually, Dan just told me about this. He said there was a bascule bridge there. And I said, yeah, I have a drawing of that. Amazing. There's no picture online, but there's this drawing online, which I'll take it. It's very interesting. But I did not know that. I know that the Mare Island Bridge that there's currently is the 3rd bridge. And this, I think, is the 2nd bridge. And I don't know what the 1st bridge would have been like. I haven't.
The first bridge crossed 3 streets further south than what the current ones cross at. On Mare Island, this comes off on, I think it's G Street, but the
That sounds
original
right.
bridge went on A Street.
Really?
Yeah, so, and then you can still see where the tracks, this thing had tracks that went across it for the Napa Valley Electric, and that's what those 2 cross things are on the bridge itself. They carry the catenary, the wire across the.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah, I know that there was a railroad bridge there, but so it's an electric
Yeah,
train.
carry 2 lanes of traffic plus railroad track.
And here's the current Mare Island Bridge.
Still carries 2 lanes of traffic.
Does anybody know, is the current Mare Island Bridge still in service? Does it go up and down?
Yes, that's
Sure.
I don't go there a lot, but I've never seen it moving up and down. Not in 20 years. I thought maybe since the Navy cleared out of there, they wouldn't need it. But I guess it's for other navigate coming down the Napa River, maybe? That makes sense.
Yep.
well, with Napa.
I waited around, went over there one day and waited around for a couple of hours, but
Nothing happened.
nothing happened. I spent a lot of my time doing that.
And now you glow in the dark.
And here's one I just pulled out of my files today. Anybody know this one?
Is that Sacramento?
Good guess. It's the Rio Vista Bridge. And while I was thinking about putting this together, I sent Jeff a message saying, yeah, I'll have it done at 2. And he said, how about 1:30? And I said, okay. And then I'm looking at it and I thought, something's missing. And then I realized it's the Rio Vista Bridge. It's a beautiful bridge. The best part about the Rio Vista Bridge, if you go visit it, and I would encourage you. Bad mouthing. Bad mouthing the state or something. What's the best part about visiting the Rio Vista Bridge? See if you can imagine what it might be.
The Vista?
Or the Rio. Well, you can see all the windmills.
Yeah.
You have to go by the windmill farms over there on the Rio Vista side. It's really fun to drive down there. Because at a distance, sometimes when I walk in the hills above Crockett, if it's a clear day, at the distance you can see the windmills in the distance, and there's hundreds of them.
Have you been to Bird's Landing over there?
I have.
Well, it's just neat. It's lost area.
But there are places where you can drive, and I've done it, and take pictures, get out of the car and you see maybe 6 or 8 windmills, But if you're looking at a distance, you see 100. They're so far apart that when you're on top of them, you can only see 6 or 8 at a time.
Yeah.
It's very interesting how big they are. And so, just in case if anybody, you can drive across the bridge, drive around, see the windmills. I took my kids there a couple of times to take pictures, and they loved it. It's a great day trip. And then finally,
Wow.
we're at the king of the lift bridges in the Bay Area, and that's the railroad bridge at Pinole. And it's a very, very interesting bridge. It's got 2 train tracks still in service. Anybody here ever been across that bridge on a train? Oh, you've done some. Were you driving the train?
It was a break, but yes.
Oh, a break.
Anytime.
I wanted to go across that bridge on the train a lot, but Amtrak, too expensive. But I've been all around it because I took pictures of the new bridge when they were building it, so I had a bird's eye view of this thing for a couple of years. But still, I would like to do it. And the towers have cables and pulleys, and every now and then they have to maintain or replace those cables or pulleys. And so one of these days I'll get wind that they're doing that, and I'll find the contractor, and then I'll be able to get up on top of that dang thing, which is what I really want to do. This was opened in 1930 and had a tremendous impact on this area. Finally, we're going to get to something in our local area. What was the impact?
No more ferries.
Yeah, the Contra Costa and the Solano, the ferries that came into Port Costa, were put out of business overnight. I grew up in Port Costa, and my father grew up in Port Costa, but even my father was born after the ferries were put out of service. But he told me that for a long time some of the infrastructure was still down there, and slowly it got taken out. And so here's the symbol of Southern Pacific's confidence in California's tomorrow. One of the reasons, this is from the opening day, one of the reasons I like this photograph is because that engine, that locomotive that's coming, that old-timey locomotive, anybody recognize that? I see that all over the place, pictures. My children had a math book that had a picture of that on the front of it. Not this picture. It's the Jupiter?
I think.
Where's it at right now?
Don't know. The UP bought the SP.
Yeah, it's in the Railroad Museum in Sacramento, if you've ever gone up there, which is worth visiting too. It's one of their displays, one of the first things you see when you go in there. I think it was one of the trains that was at the promontory when they drove the Gold Spike. So it had a real history here in the West, and that's one of the reasons why they brought it out of retirement. You can see behind it is a huge locomotive, modern for 1930. Early picture of a ship passing under the bridge.
Big ship.
And that is a big ship. That's a good point, because that's a really big bridge. It's quite startling how heavy duty these are. And I put this in because this was the last ticketed run of the Solano, as it was taking people from Port Costa to Benicia for the opening ceremony of the bridge that was going to put the ferry boat out of business. And once everybody cleared off, the Solano sat there idling and dormant for a couple of weeks, and then it was, does anybody know where the Solano wound up? Some people do.
It's like they took it further up and sank it for a fish habitat.
Close. They took it to Antioch, and they sank it as a breakwater at the Antioch Marina, where it sat for 50 years until 1984. 4th of July 1984, somebody lit off some fireworks and burned to the waterline. You can still see parts of the walking beam engine sticking out at low tide. People around Antioch, modern people, call that little mess, they call it Solano Island, but they don't know why. And here's a real tidbit for you, if you're into this kind of thing. Google Earth. You can see the outline of the old ferry from Google Earth. It's still there. And it's big, very big. You went on that? Oh, that'd be great. Yeah, I'm fascinated by the ferries, mostly because I grew up in Port Costa. And moving on. Here's a picture I took when I was doing the Benicia Bridge. One of the things that I liked about this project was there were so many piers in the water that they had tugboats going around all the time. So I could get on a tugboat and just travel around up and down the side of the bridge and take pictures. Now, there's one other thing out there too that's very interesting that doesn't really have anything to do with the bridges. Do you know what it is?
You mean the ships?
Yeah, the mothball fleet. I always wondered about the mothball fleet. Lately the ships have been going out. They take them to wherever, Korea or China, to break them down.
What do they like?
So I went to Texas,
Really?
yes.
Recently?
Yeah, they go
I mean, in the past 10
Yeah,
years.
yeah, yeah.
When I was out there in 2006, I was on a tugboat once, and I asked the tugboat captain, I said, you ever been out there to the mothball fleet? He says, sure. And I said, I've never been out there. He said, oh, we'll go now. And he just turns the boat. And we go out to the mothball fleet. At that time, there was one of those battleships was there. Maybe the Iowa, I think, was there for a while. So we went and checked out the Iowa until the Coast Guard got on the radio and said, who are you and why are you there? And he said, well, time to go. And we got out of there. It was very fascinating.
Yeah, I think the boats were taken from fleet there, it went down to Brownsville, Texas, I believe.
Oh, that's right, Brownsville, Texas.
And there they were essentially cleaned up, and then they were sold, and they were taken overseas and made razor blades out of them.
Yeah. Very good.
Razor blades and automobiles.
And here's an old illustration advertising the Antioch Bridge. The company that built the Carquinez Bridge, the original Carquinez Bridge that opened in 1927, they were building the Antioch Bridge at the same time, and they sold stock in the company. And so they had these graphic illustrations of what the bridge would look like. And the Antioch Bridge actually opened maybe 6 months before the Carquinez Bridge opened. It's quite amazing. Back in the day, these were private enterprises. There was no government involvement in it at all. Some guys just dreamed it up. They just dreamed it up and built it. So, and it was done fast, and it was done reasonably cheaply, unlike modern programs.
And that approach is a steep approach, isn't it?
Yeah, it sure, the way it is there, that's not what the bridge wound up looking like,
I
but
wouldn't think so.
yeah, that's like an artist's conception or something long before the bridge reached reality. Oh, you're gonna like this. Can you guess what's coming?
That's the old one?
Yeah, the new one's up. The old one has its lift portion all the way up. The teenage girls have cut high school to come down and watch. The seagull doesn't know what's about to hit it. And here it goes. Oh, I had them backwards. Look at that. I was supposed to go this one and then this one.
No seagull.
Jeff, why didn't you edit this for me? Yeah, the seagull's out of there. I imagine some seagulls were having a bad day. I can't imagine they cleared them too much.
So were the fish.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Probably took a beating. Although I will say something else. I think it was Dan that pointed out that on the far right of the old bridge, that is a steep approach. So they actually did work that into it.
Yeah.
Now, this is a horrible picture. It's too small. It's one of the Bascule bridges. Which number is this? Number 39. I don't know. Let's see. Oh, there it is. It's the San Joaquin River Bridge. One of the reasons that I like this bridge, and I've talked about it before in a book, is because Al Zampa, when he was starting his bridge building career, after he finished the Carquinez Bridge, he went up to the Delta and built several of these little bridges for the company American Bridge that used to build all the bridges in America, hence the name. Actually, American Bridge was one of the contractors that built the New Bay Bridge too, so they're still a going concern. This is one that I like very much, and this is why I have the notes, because I don't know the names of the places, even though it was hard for me to find. This is called the 8 Mile Road Bridge, number 41. Yes, a swing bridge. I like the color, I like the style. It was built in 1936 and retrofitted in 1975. Still open, still in service.
Where is it?
Is it in Pennsylvania?
No, it's here.
Stockton.
Yeah, it's going up towards Stockton. I see I had a problem. Also, when I'm thinking about lift bridges of the Bay Area, what constitutes the Bay Area? Does anybody know what the Bay Area is?
No.
They talk about the 9 Bay Area counties, which means you could go pretty far from the water and still be in the Bay Area technically. But when I discovered some of these bridges, I thought, well, I gotta include them. I've left out an important one that Jeff will remind me about in a minute. And this is the Middle River Bridge. This is another one that Al Zampa worked on while he was looking for bigger bridges to build. He eventually went to the Bay Bridge and then the Golden Gate Bridge.
Yeah. Where is this one?
This is on the way, near Highway 4, heading towards Stockton, but not too far from Brentwood. And as you can see, I had to go out on the road to take the picture, but I'm willing to do anything. I couldn't find a better location to get a good picture. I couldn't go along the shoreline because the brush was too thick. The dang bridge. So I had to wait until the traffic was clear and run out there.
You should get a drone.
Yeah.
You know, I thought of that. That just seems like cheating, though. But I don't know. But I don't think I could afford a good one. This is another tiny, tiny picture. This is the, not the Middle River Bridge, I apologize. Cheat sheets. '43. This is the Woodward Island Bridge. This is a railroad bridge that's still in service, and it's called a bascule bridge. It's very much like a. If you look at it, it almost looks like an old catapult, like a trebuchet or something. The way it has the counterweight that operates to bring the lift up. It's really the simplest design. It's like an old drawbridge. You've got the counterweight that weighs about as much as the part you're trying to lift, and then all you have to do is push it gently one way or the other and control it in some way so it doesn't get out of hand. This one is also on the way to Stockton off of Highway 4. The problem is, you get up there, and those little roads that go around the delta, it's easy to get lost. Because they all look the same. You know, then I try to find some fisherman or somebody who's there fishing and ask them, do you know where the bridge is, the railroad bridge? And then they say, hey, go this way, 10 miles, and now take a left. And one guy said, oh, it's easy. Just go to the end right, go to the end left, go to the end right. All right, I found it, but it wasn't as easy as he claimed. This one is, what a strange name, Little Potato Slaw Bridge. Little Potato.
I've been in there with the boat. Whoa, that's
You
a
have?
rough area.
Nice.
It's like a prison.
It does. It does. The concrete is hideous. And one of the things that I put in my little write-up, I said, you know, these lift bridges have been replaced by concrete and steel spans. They're more effective, but they're less elegant.
Is that a swing? It's a swing?
It is a swing bridge.
Really?
And there it is.
Yeah, that's.
They call that the potato patch.
Oh, yeah.
The potato patch is what it's called for the boats. when they're-
Really?
Yeah.
That's very
It's in
interesting.
the delta, right?
Yes.
Yeah. All these last few bridges I've talked about are maybe within 10 miles of each other. We drew a circle on the map, but if you're driving, it's difficult.
That was fine.
And finally, I hope I have this. Which one is it? 45?
That looked like-
45, and I don't remember the name of this
That
one.
looked like the delta.
But it's a very similar bridge to the other one that we've seen, and you can see a counterweight here on the far right that lifts it up. Again, this little boat was going by. I was hoping the bridge would go up, but no, I couldn't make it happen. And then finally, I left one, I think, an important lift bridge in the Bay Area out of the presentation. Do you know what it is, Jeff? This is not it.
Oh,
The
okay.
Robinson Bridge?
Yeah, I wish.
San Francisco 4th Street.
Is it 4th Street or 3rd Street?
That's the left field dual bridge.
Yeah, 3rd Street. This was the original bridge down there by the ballpark.
I remember that. Years ago.
And yeah, Santa Fe owned it and for the railroad. And then eventually it was replaced by this one, which is still there, which is also a bascule bridge. Got the heavy counterweight to lift it up. Again, I've never actually seen it going up and down, but I'm sure that it does, because on the far side, there's boats up in there.
Yep.
And so it's really, really interesting bridge. That neighborhood used to be China Basin. It used to be very industrial, and now the ballpark's down there, and it's getting rather tony. You call that Lefty O'Doul Bridge?
Yeah,
Yes.
it's named after Lefty O'Doul. Hence the name Lefty O'Doul Bridge.
Okay, well, some people call it 3rd Street Bridge, some people call it China Basin. And I didn't know until they had co-opted it for Lefty O'Doul. Congratulations to him.
Mission Creek.
And that is the last photograph I have. See, you guys are lucky. I was worried nobody would show up because of the Democratic debate. I thought it's going to be hard to keep with all that brain power. Does anybody have any questions or comments? I already invited you to comment all you wanted. The San Rafael Bridge is not a lift bridge.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay.
Does anybody know anything about these things? Have a story to tell? Dan told me about some bridges I didn't know about. All the way in the back, what's your name?
Estella.
Estella.
So that bridge is actually also Joseph Strauss Bridge.
Yes, you're right. That was made by Joseph Strauss. He designed it, the engineer who designed the Golden Gate Bridge. I imagine his company designed several bridges, but I'm not sure which ones. But thank you, because I did know that. But well, ladies and gentlemen, it's 7:45.
And where are your kids?
So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good. Jeff needs to learn to give people the hook.
Nice job. While I was standing back.